Hello, experts. Once again, welcome to the Diagnostics podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the importance of mentoring medical laboratory science students from the undergraduate level. We know that our field is a very complex one and it's a very practical one. We need as much help as we can, especially from experienced individuals. And today we're going to go into some detail on that topic with Oluwamuyiwa Ogunkoya. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Robert. How about you?
I'm fine too. How should I call you?
Well, Oluwamuyiwa
Is there a
my
short?
first name, yeah. So you can call me Oluwamu. Yeah, you can call me Muyiwa actually. People call me Muyiwa.
All right, no problem. So tell us, who is Muyiwa?
Yeah, so I'm a final year student from the University of Lagos. Of course, I'm studying medical laboratory science. I currently serve as program coordinator for intern here in my student association for my university chapter, right? And it's been running for like 2-3 years now, right? So we started like 2 sessions ago, but three because of the pandemic and some other academic action, strike and things like that. But it's been going fine. So I also happen to be the special advisor to the national president of Student Association on international relations and foreign affairs. So what we're trying to do there basically is see that we can establish relationship across the continent that will eventually lead to the formation of the Federation for African Medical Laboratory Science Students, right? So far we have like, I think 12, 13 countries on board, and we're making gradual progress towards that.
How did that start? Where did the idea come from and how did you get involved? Sounds like an interesting project.
So which one of the projects?
The last one, the international relations and trying to foster relationships between medical laboratory scientists from different countries.
Yeah, so giving honor to whom honor is due, really, it's more of it's an idea that was born out of that desire to establish relationships basically, but it's not an original idea of mine, right? I'm just in the position to still the carry or drive the ship, some so let me put it like that, because it was something that started with the president of Ghana, that's the student association in Ghana and Nigeria here. So I remember last year when the president, that's Isaac Okusu, came over to Nigeria during a convention and also during our election, because we hold our elections during the convention. And then, of course, I think from there, he had some conversation with the Nigerian president, that's the president-elect, as speaker. And, from there, it's been a lot of collaboration. It's sometime around June, July, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe earlier, we had an international conference, right? That was done in conjunction with Ghana, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, and of course, Nigeria. So, since then, it has been, we've been looking at ways to make it stronger and eventually, have what we are planning to have for the future, which is the federation. So it's an idea that was shared by both of them, and looking at my own capacity to get things done, I was given that position to work more and see where we can carry this on.
That's a wonderful project. I hope it really goes to fruition. We need a lot more of connection between the different countries in Africa, especially in the medical laboratory science field. Now, how did you get involved with medical laboratory science? What brought you to the field? Or you stumbled into it like some of us?
Yeah, so which is actually one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this topic, and maybe I would in a bit touch on that because I know you have other questions, but in a bit I will touch on that. So if you look at, I think it's the case. I think it's across board, right? Even for people in other African countries, right? So if you get a child, maybe a child in primary school, and you ask the child, what do you want to be in future, right? So the things that come to that child's mind is either a doctor, a lawyer, a banker, an engineer, those major things. In fact, in Nigeria here, they used to do this program. We actually a program or a drama, a common drama. We call this Sandalili, where you do a role play, some sort of the professions that you can be in future, and usually those major ones. So it's almost like that question, it prompts you to think about the things you can be, but it also closes your mind to all the things that you could possibly be, because even though they're asking you, it's usually not an honest question to ask to get what you really want to be, because everybody's mind is fixed on a couple of things. So if you say, for example, then if you say you want to be a footballer or a musician, you're going to look at you, are you a serious person at all, right? So for me, I've always wanted to do medicine and surgery, right? It was something, I would say it's more of something that my mom wanted me to do. Like I feel like that, feel it that way. So the boy was brilliant, of course. The boy was doing well in school. So if somebody is doing well and is brilliant and is looking towards, why not just be a medical doctor? So it was an ambition I carried to secondary school and of course into admissions, trying to apply for university, right? But it wasn't really falling into place. Things were not really falling into place. We do jam there. I don't know how you guys do it there. So I went through jam and I wrote jam again. So is it on now?
Yeah, good now.
Is it still on now?
Yeah, I can see you. I can hear you too. You can keep going.
So yeah, so when next time I wrote jam, and I missed MBBS by a point or so, I immediately changed my course to medical laboratory science, and I was saying that it hasn't been a regret for me so far. It's been wonderful doing medical laboratory science. So yeah, that's how I came about medical laboratory science. And I know that's a story that is similar to many of us.
Yeah, many people, that's what tends to happen. You are doing something else and then you stumble upon this field that's called medical laboratory science. You ask yourself, what is this? You start looking into it and then some decide they don't like it and then some decide that they want to get into it. So what made you decide that you want to do that? Is it because it was a bit similar to medicine? What was the reason?
Well, I would say the practical aspect of it, because remember, I was working as an intern. So looking at scientists there doing what they do, and the fact that, it's a clinical course, right? Of course, there's a research aspect to it. And then you know that what you're doing has immense value to patients, right? Today we make the claim that decisions made by doctors, in diagnosis is reliant on the medical laboratories tests done to about 70%. Yeah. I mean, you look at the value that these people are offering and you just want to jump on it.
Now, when it comes to mentoring, how was your experience like throughout your studies?
I think for me, it actually began with me. So when you say experience in mentoring, because it's two-faceted. Is it me as a mentee or me as a mentor?
No, okay, I see what you mean. As a mentee.
Okay, so in my third year, when I got into medical laboratory science, studied medical laboratory science, I happened to run for the post of academic secretary, right? So I was academic secretary. So, prior to that, we were looking at, because when we came in, so the way we do it here in Nigeria, you spend 1 year as a pre-med student, then you remaining 4 years as, medical laboratory science. So when I came into the College of Medicine, medical laboratory science proper, the environment, or like I say, the culture we found, or we came across wasn't too supporting, if I can put it that way, because it's more or less as if we were left on our own.
Okay.
Coming in as a fresher, you have to navigate through the college yourself. And we're doing anatomy, physiology, those really cumbersome courses, and it was just a lot. And we just looked at it, and the problem actually started when we were in pre-med, right? Because there were a lot of things we didn't know. I think we should have known, but we didn't know nevertheless. Like some criteria, how they could change, how you needed to do certain things to actually meet the criteria to cross over to college of medicine. With what we now found when we came in, the disparity between the seniors and the juniors, how everybody was just on their own.
Yeah.
And so in my third year, when I became a 300 student and I ran for the post of academic secretary, we're thinking in the lines of what could we do to solve this problem, right? Of course, mentoring was one thing that came up consistently. From there. So one thing that we planned to do, we actually did, was what I just mentioned when I said that we started a mentoring program, right? So, but before we started, during the preparatory stage, if I can put it like that, I had to sample some opinions, and one of such people's opinions that I asked for was one of my lecturers here. Her name is Dr. Francisca Wankere. She's now an associate professor, and we're just in class one day, and I was like, okay. I followed her to her office, and I was like, Ma, what do you think about this thing we're about to start? Because I knew that if we're going to do something solid, we'd need structure, right, and we would need the influence. Yes, we need the support of such people. So I asked her opinion, and it turned out that she was actually somebody who was doing something big on mentoring already. So she's a mentor international mentor with New York Academy of Science, right? So she mentors girls, right, in STEM. And, the conversation just went on and they said, okay, she's going to serve as a supervisor, for the program. But of course, because of that relationship, she was also serving as my own mentor of some sort. So the experience has been, very wonderful so far. 3-4 years now, we've known ourselves. She has served as supervisor, a mother, a mentor to me. So my mentoring experience began with that really as a mentor.
Okay, I see. But one thing that I like with the approach you took is you didn't necessarily do what some others may have done, which is just hope and wait. You're more proactive, right? You took the steps to go and start talking to people. That's what allowed you to discover okay, she's already a mentor. She already has this background. She can really help us. And now it's been 3 years, and I'm pretty sure you've been able to help lots of the new students that have been able to get in, although you may not have received the same level of, I wouldn't call it encouragement, but support. When you come in, you are able to help those who came behind you. And I think that's what a lot more people need to do, rather than always wait for the university or always wait for, let's say, even as medical laboratory scientists, the workplace to start projects. It could also be a good idea for us to start amongst ourselves, especially if we know that it's going to be good for us in the future.
Yeah. Just taking on what you said now, it always seems as if we're helping other people, when we start. But what I found along the way is that it always comes back to you somehow. So even if you're thinking of how to, do things, at the end of the day, it also opens you up to a lot of exposure opportunities and things like that. So
yeah, because usually when you start doing that, because no one has done it before, you have to go and meet new people. And very often you find out that those new people you are meeting, they can help you to do this or that thing in the future. And maybe if you're working with them and maybe you don't have a strong work ethic and you're not a good worker, that's a problem. But if you are someone who likes working, if you are even just a normal worker, they're going to see you, and whenever there's an opportunity, because there's that relationship, they'll usually think about you.
That's very correct.
So relationships are always extremely, extremely important. As a mentor, how have you navigated the space? Has it been complicated trying to mentor the students? Like, has there been any sort of pushback, any questions being asked by maybe the administration about what you are trying to do and why you are doing that, and why not leave the professors do it? What was the reception like?
Yeah, so when we started, even within my committee as the academic secretary then, because actually this thing has been tried before. There was just no structure, right? So previous academic secretary tried something like that, but what he just did was to pair people up and forget about them. I can put it like that. So it wasn't really effective. And I got to know that, of course, by asking him. And so what we did differently really was to put in structures in place to make it sustainable. I can put it like that. So even from my committee, there was pushback, not a lot, but there was pushback. Of course, we were discussing around it, and of course, even the people that pushed back were the ones that eventually were part of the whole process of building the whole thing, right? So there was the talk of, you have to make it so serious, you have to take it, just pair people up. You don't have to stress yourself too much. There was that. And there was the fear that, okay, what if you mentored somebody and because our major focus was for people in 200 level, that's people that just joined the college to study medical fabric science, and then people in the pre-med, some sort. So there was that fear that, okay, what if you mentor somebody and then the results that you hope to achieve, you don't achieve them, and maybe even the opposite is what happens, right? So what do you do then? Was that fear? Well, and because it was something new as well, it took some time for people to catch up to what was going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. So we had to do extra publicity, if I can put it, even meeting people one-on-one, have as mentors, and then to encourage. I think for the mentees it wasn't a lot of effort, because obviously you want somebody to actually guide you and help you and all of that. But even at that, there were mentees that weren't too serious with it. Yeah. Right, if I can feel like that. So
it's always the case.
At that first stage, it wasn't really encouraging. If you find a mentee, let's say you're doing a check-in on them, and then you find that maybe the mentee has not reached out, or maybe the mentor has not reached out, kind of discouraging. You're like, why am I now stressing myself if you guys are not even going to put in the effort?
Yeah,
So
but what people
that
usually
was
say
there.
for any
And
sort
I
of
think there were a
program.
lot. There was,
Okay, go ahead. I'm
what
listening.
did you say? I didn't hear what you said.
No, what I was just trying to say is what everybody says is for any type of program, usually what's going to happen is about 20% of people are the ones who are going to be very active. And so that's usually always the case. You find a strong group of people who are doing most of the work, and then the others are kind of gravitating around and then helping every once in a while. But it's very hard to have a group where everybody is participating and giving the same amount of energy to the project.
Yeah, that's very.
That's usually how these things tend to go. When you were talking earlier, you talked about
Hello,
structure
can you hear me?
things. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? In the call.
Yeah, I can. Go ahead.
I was saying earlier on, you talked about putting in structures and structuring things differently from the way it was done by your predecessor. What were some of, let's say there's someone that's watching that would like to do something similar to what you did in your case. How did you structure things? What did you put in place that allowed you to make the program successful?
Yeah, so the very first thing is one thing I've already talked about, having a supervisor who was not a student,
Yeah.
right? So another thing was to develop a code of conduct, right? Because even in my conversations with the supervisor, she mentioned some of these things. So what happens if things goes wrong? What are the measures you put in place to ensure that you cover for lapses, you cover for certain things and some things like that? We developed a code of conduct. We also developed a guide, a mentor guide and a mentee guide. It wasn't so much, but it was like a prop up to what you were going to be doing. When I was recruiting at that time, it was with the vision that, okay, you're going to be doing this for more than a year, right? You're going to be doing this for 2, 3 years and so on and so forth. Then I think also getting the major influencers in the association also involved, right? So one thing I did or we did when we started was to get the president, that's president of student association, involved. So he had to be a mentor himself, right? So the major stakeholders really had to be involved to get the whole thing running. So yeah, so what usually happens is that once you've been able to start, they say that moving friction or starting friction is higher than moving friction. So once you've started and you said well and you see the results, it just takes on a life on its own.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we've seen, although we've had challenges here and there. So, but those are the major things: having a supervisor, having a team, having some guidelines, to guide the program.
Because yeah, what you said makes sense because having students as mentors is going to be different from having, let's say, a lecturer as a mentor. The student is going to be more likely to listen to the lecturer than they're likely to listen to the other student. Now, what did they have to do? What were some of the, did they have any specific tasks any things that they had to do together or that the mentee had to get through?
So the way it is now, there are stages, right? For the program design, we have where we do the training. People register, right? So you register as a mentor, as a mentee. There's some questions there that help us with matching you with the appropriate people, right? So when you register, you get that. Then we have a screening process. For now, the screening process is just for mentors, right? Because one challenge that we figured out in the first year we did it. It's one thing to get people as mentors, right? It's another thing to actually get those mentors to be serious about what they're doing. And because research suggests that it's better for you not to mentor somebody at all than to do it poorly, right? Usually that kicks back, so you have negative effects of what you hope to achieve. So moving on to the second year, we just had to do that because we didn't do screening in the first year. So this second year, we had to screen mentors to be sure that, okay, you have interest, number one, but more importantly, that you had the time to actually do what you wanted to do, right? Because if you have the interest and you don't have the time, it's a big problem. Then we do orientation. So during the orientation, we just talk about basic things like how to lead a mentoring conversation, the responsibilities that mentors and mentors should play, and the vision of the program itself in the student association, so people can understand why they're getting into what they're getting into, right? So those are the things they had to go through first, in order to really get in as mentors.
And now getting back to you, what amount of work did you find that you had to put in, or what amount of work do you have to put in to make sure that the whole thing keeps moving?
Well, to be honest, it was a lot of sacrifice on my part. I know that I had sleepless nights. I had people working with me. Shout out to Sean, Adebanjo, Ben, and Alex. Olagora and Jan. The key people working with me on it when we started. Now we have like a team. it has expanded beyond that. But those were the people that started the whole thing with me. They're part of my committee, but they were more focused on the mentoring thing. So it was a lot of really, it was sleepless nights sometimes, and then having to match people was a lot. Looking at was a lot really, and then people who didn't eventually get in, they would ask you why, and you have to give an explanation, giving them hope, and then having to now. And it's not a case where you're applying from, let's say, outside the country for a mentoring program. No, you're not saying who you are taking in and you're not taking in. And you come across these people every day. So you have to. There's the real emotional aspect to it.
You have to be
Or
diplomatic.
yeah, it was good.
All right, all right. And what is the future of the program that you're seeing now? Do you have any
Okay,
particular plans, any specific plans that you are working towards in the future? What's going to happen with it?
Yeah, so when we started the program, right? So we signed a contract. When I signed the contract with my supervisor, right, it was a 5-year contract. So even from then, when we started, we knew that we wanted to go long term, right? It wasn't just it was something that was supposed to continue even after I'd left, because I had just 3 years then. So even after I'd left, it was something that was supposed to continue. Right now, what we are trying to do now, because we're trying to look at the old thing again. Because the people that I started it with, remember I mentioned some names. Only one of them is still in school, and myself. The other two people have graduated, and there were a lot of things that we didn't consider then. What we're trying to do now is really sit back and redesign the whole program for real sustainability, if I can put it that way. Right, so I have 9 other people working with me on that now. Currently we're having meetings on a weekly basis. So we're starting from scratch. What is mentoring? Why are we doing what we do? Then the program design, how it's going to progress from initiation phase to closure. So we're redesigning the whole thing presently, like as we speak. So we are coming up with a handbook, like I said already, right?
Yeah.
And so what I'm actually doing now. So the people that are helping me with the handbook really are people, they are majorly in their 300 level. So they still have like 3 years to go. And then some people in 200 level too. So it's more or less like if you're going to make any real change for sustainability, right? The people that you're trying to impact have to be the ones involved in the planning.
Yeah.
Right. So you're not doing things on behalf of people. And then when it's their turn to actually now take over, they find out that these things don't actually suit their definition of impact or things like that. So right.
So there are people among
So
them who are willing to take on the mantle, right?
yes. So everybody who got in to be part of that, I told them that, okay, this is what we're trying to do, right? So they know that this is for long term, not for a year or two.
All right. I mean, that's the most important. Hopefully, they're able to sustain it and keep everything going. But I think what you're doing is a very good step. As long as things are structured and then they know in what direction they need to go. And on top of that, there are people who are supervising. I think everything is going to end up being fine. So thanks again for taking the time to talk to us about this program today and what it is that you are working on. If anyone wants to discuss this with you in some more detail, where could they get in contact with you?
Well, on LinkedIn, yes, I'm on LinkedIn.
All right.
Oluwamuyiwa Ogunkoya. I think that's like the best place, right? So I respond on LinkedIn. But you can also send me an email, oluwamuyiwa@gmail.com, right? So.
All right. Thanks a lot again for taking the time to be here with us today, and hopefully we'll have you again next time to talk more MedLab.
All right.